Hi everyone, it's Victoria with Nutrition by Victoria. I am having my lunch smoothie right now. This is dates and bananas blended together. 100% deliciousness. And I thought I'd talk today to you guys about endometriosis. It is something that I brought up in my last video. I have a family history of endometriosis that runs on my mom's side. My mother had endometriosis, her sister had endometriosis, my grandmother, which is their mother, had endometriosis. And I wanted to talk about why I believe that a high fruit diet actually, and even like a high carb, low fat diet in general, can help negate, possibly ending up, with endometriosis where it becomes really bad. So my experience with it so far has been, I was having irregular periods when I was 16. I got on birth control. I was on that until my early 20s when I stopped taking it, and everything seemed pretty normal. But I think I was still having some like weird symptoms, and I had a laparoscopy done, which is the diagnostic technique that they do to see if you have endometriosis, and I didn't at the time. Everything came back good. My doctor said I was really fertile, my eggs looked good and everything. And then, I've had children, but ever since I've had my last child, and maybe it's because I'm getting older, maybe it's because I had a C-section, maybe it's because I'm still breastfeeding, but I have encountered more pain than I think has been normal, and it particularly gets worse when I consume a lot of like starch. And the reason why I can say that is because I've been eating a high carb, low fat, plant-based vegan diet for almost 9 years now, and it's varied in whether I'm eating a lot of fruit or a lot of starch, or a lot of both. And I'm finding just recently, switching to more of a high fruit diet, that I have less symptoms. So my symptoms were including pain during ovulation, some pain during intercourse, lots of cramping and bloating prior to having my menstrual cycle, a little bit heavier than what I consider to be normal, bleeding, and yeah, so we are a little bit heavier than normal bleeding for myself. So those were my symptoms. And actually last year I had bleeding mid-cycle, and I went in at that point and to make sure everything was okay. They did a sonogram, because I do tend to have more pain specifically on my right side, and I can remember that dating back to when I was pregnant with Violet. So these are ongoing things. I don't know if it's anything, if it's me just being sensitive or what, but I did go in and I got checked out, and everything came back fine. All my blood work came back fine. Everything internally looked good, but the only way to properly diagnose endometriosis is through a laparoscopy, which my midwife said she doesn't want to do until I'm done breastfeeding, because the breastfeeding is playing a role in my hormone levels. So endometriosis is a condition where uterine tissue, the tissue that lines the uterus, or the endometrium, that sloughs off and you discharge when you have a period, actually grows outside of the uterus. So it can grow on the fallopian tubes, it can grow on the ovaries, and then in some rare cases they've found endometrial tissue growing like in the brain and in other areas of the body. And the growth and of the tissue is influenced by your hormones. So particularly your hormones that you have in order to menstruate. So elevated estrogen levels, dropping estrogen levels. So it causes this endometrial tissue to grow and then also die. So it can leave like scar tissue and things like that behind. They're not really sure what causes endometriosis, but I have done some of my own research in regards to nutrition and how that plays a role in endometriosis. And even on generic health websites like the Mayo Clinic and WebMD, they suggest that when you have endometriosis, or if you're trying to prevent it, to stick to a diet that's low in saturated fat, which would be low in animal fats, and also low in dairy, because the estrogens in dairy can drive your estrogen levels to be higher than they should be. So I found that to be interesting. There is a diet correlation with endometriosis, and in my mom's case, you know, she grew up eating animal products, grew up consuming dairy. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that had an influence on her development of endometriosis, which ultimately led to her needing, she had 3 children, all vaginal healthy births, but then in her late 30s, she ended up needing emergency surgery to remove a softball size cyst that had formed on her ovaries due to what she had was endometriosis that had been undiagnosed up until that point. She did say when she was younger she did have bad periods and things like that, so there was some symptoms there, but nothing like that, you know, alarmed the doctors enough to know that she had endometriosis. And I think it was probably a new thing at that time. It was probably really hard to diagnose. And yeah, somebody had mentioned on my last video that, you know, people have endometriosis their whole lives. I think that that is the case for a lot of things. Dr. John McDougall did a really good talk about cancer development and how before they are able to diagnose cancer, that cancer had probably been growing for at least 2 decades, going undiagnosed. So that's the case with a lot of things where you have something growing, but the diagnostic techniques that are being used nowadays are great, but they're not enough to be finding things before they kind of get bad. Anyways, she needed a total hysterectomy, which was done at the time that the cyst was removed. And I remember I was like 12 years old and I just was like, what is going on? Maybe I was younger. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, she was pretty messed up from it. She needed like hormone patches afterwards, because after you have all of that removed, you're basically going into menopause. And yeah, my mom's doing fine now though, but that was just like really traumatic experience for her, and something that I've always kind of been aware of, and aware that, you know, mom had this, aunt had this, grandma had this. Like, I need to, you know, do what I can to help prevent myself from getting this. So getting back to the diet aspect of why, you know, I think that a fruit-based diet is really optimal for just having like painless periods or less painful periods and lighter periods, that's based on my own experience, as well as the experience of other women who have also noticed the same thing. So when I have more fruit and hydration and leafy greens in my diet, for whatever reason, my periods are less painful, they're shorter, and they're lighter. And I also like am ovulating right now, and I don't have any ovulation pain. Like, I feel a little bit, but sometimes it gets so bad that like I have to go lay down like and put a heating pad on, and I don't feel good. So that's like that's a big you know, thing that I've noticed. And yeah, I don't know, I think it's just, you know, the starch is denser, and like if I was to quote the Mucusless Diet Healing System, which I do think that a lot of the information contained in that book is actually relevant towards human health, but I just don't agree with the whole like eat less aspect of it, because I find that I can, you know, eat as much fruit and sugar in the form of like smoothies and stuff as I want, and I feel really good. And so like there isn't a need for like extended fasting or, you know, limiting your food intake, just like changing the foods that you're eating. So more fruits and vegetables, less, you know, of the kind of denser stuff. Even though, you know, dates and sugar and stuff are dense in calories, they dissolve into your body and they don't leave any waste behind. So that is the concept. I think that when I eat a lot of starch, for whatever reason, like I can't eliminate it as well as like maybe some other people can, and I think it like plays into, you know, whatever I have going on in my lady bits, if you know what I'm saying. But that is just my own personal theory based on my experience. And I just wanted to share that with you all. If you disagree with whatever I'm talking about, that's perfectly fine too. I do encourage reading the Mucusless Diet Healing System book because it's a very interesting and old read. And then I'm kind of developing my own diet of healing, you know, or encouraging the body to heal itself, because that's how it works. It's kind of like we have to just get out of the way and do what the body needs in order for it to heal itself, because regeneration is what we do. It's just certain things that we put into our body affect that ability, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and leave any comments or questions down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.